Welcome to Eastern Hills. We're so excited to have you here this evening. I'm sure more will be coming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started here. We are so happy to welcome Karen Stubbs, and this is her first time for her ministry here in Washington, right? So we're so happy that you could join us. I know many of you have listened to her podcast or done her studies, so I know you all will be encouraged tonight. So let's welcome Karen.
Thank you. Well, hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank y'all for coming. This is my first time up to the, can y'all hear me? First time up to the Pacific Northwest. Can you hear me? Yes? So it's beautiful, and y'all are really out here. You really are, like no joke. I was trying to tell my family where we were, and they were like, yeah, we know the state of Washington. I said, no, I don't think you understand. This is like, we're almost the furthest you can go to the left of the country and still be in, like, Canada is across the water. And they were like, okay, Mom. And I'm like, do you understand how far out I am? So my name is Karen Stubbs, and I'm so happy to be here for y'all. We were actually driving here. My husband, Greg, is with me. And he goes, how did these ladies find you? And I said, I have no idea. But I'm so glad that they did, and I'm so glad that I can be here with y'all tonight. So let me give you a picture of my family, just so you know. I am a mother of 4. This is my whole crew. On the end, on the left side, is my son-in-law, Brian, holding Grayson and little Harper and Emily. Emily is the one that does the podcast with me. So that's their family. Abby and Ben are next, and then Greg and I, and then Talon, Evie, Chapman are the children, and that's Kelsey and Kevin. And then on the end, on the right, is my son, Taylor, and his wife, Sarah, and she's holding her stomach because she just had a little baby girl, Addie, and she's 5 months. And not next week, but the week after, we're going to all join in Florida and have a big family vacation, so that should be fun. So how I started Birds on a Wire ministry is I never set out. Never tell God you'll never do anything, right? Because that's what you're always going to end up doing. But I was working at a church. I had worked there for 12 years, and I just kept seeing moms were sort of struggling. And so my kids were entering middle school and then down, and I thought, oh, my goodness, these ladies that have toddlers, it's so easy. Now that I have a middle schooler. So I sort of started a little small group in my basement for moms of toddlers. And I just thought, y'all just don't know how good you got it. And they'd come in every, week just so tired and downtrodden. Of course, I was that way when I had a toddler. And then you get to middle school, and you really want to go back to the toddler years. But so anyways, I started it. That grew and grew and grew. And I was on staff, and I kept telling my church, like, hey, guys, we need to do something for these moms. Like, they're drowning. And they're like, well, you've got your little group. And I'm like, well, my little group is like 65 ladies now. And y'all, you need to do something. And they were just like, you're doing a great job. And I'm like, ha. So anyways, kept doing that. And then it just kept growing. And then in 2011, I was sitting in church. And God's like, it's time to go. And I'm like, where are we going? And he's like, you're going to start a ministry. And I'm like, oh, you're funny. I'm not. And he goes, you're funny because you are. And guess what, guys? Birds on a Wire was birthed. 2011, you just can only argue with God for so long. So 2011, I left my staff position, started Birds on a Wire. And guess what? It wasn't just the moms in my church that were struggling. It actually ended up being moms actually all over the world. We are on like every continent now. Isn't that insane? Except for Antarctica. But I don't think penguins are listening, I just don't think they care. But anyways, so I am honored and humbled to be here with y'all tonight, to get to speak to you guys in the most northern part of our beautiful country. And I will take a part of y'all home with me, and I'm so excited. Please, at the break, y'all come up, introduce yourself, let me know how many kids you have and all the fun things. We can do selfies, whatever. And I just brought a sample of our products. If y'all want anything or if we run out of something, we will ship it to you for free. I just didn't know what all to ship. My assistant's asking me, and I said, I have no idea. So, but tonight, the talk that we are going to do is one of my very favorite talks of all time. And if you've been listening to Birds on a Wire, you know I love the temperaments. They literally changed my world when my son was 2.5 years old. So before we do that, before I dive in, y'all look at your packets. And on the very first page, that one, flip it, open it up, and I'll see, hold yours up. I should have brought one. Yes, that. There's a test. I want y'all to take a test because this is going to put us all on the same page. So as you look at the test, let me show you how to do it. Lindsay, do you have one? Let me just show them. Thank you. So it's this page right here. So the first one says, circle the word in each row. I need my glasses on to best describe you. So yellow, takes chances. Red, likes to lead. Green, loyal. Blue, high ideals. Whichever word strikes you right out of the gate, circle it. Please don't overthink this test. I'm going to give y'all 5 minutes because moms are like, I don't know, I'm between these two. Just pick one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just pick one. All right, go. All right, a couple more minutes. All right, whoever's finished, raise your hand. Let me see. All right, I'm going to give y'all 30 more seconds to wrap it up. All right, let's see where we are. Who in here had yellow as your top number? Raise your hand. Everybody look around the room. These are your party people. These are the people that want to have the party. They're not going to do well with the details, but they want to have the party. Who in here raised their hand, had red as their highest color? Everybody look around. These are the people that are going to get the party done. These are the bossy people. These are the people that have a plan and are going to execute the plan and all that. Who in here had blue as their highest color? Everybody really needs to pay attention to these people. These are the detail people. These are the people that are going to make sure all the details are covered to have a great party. Okay? Who in here had green as their highest color? You all want to invite the greens because they're your peaceful people. They're going to keep everything moving along smoothly and agree with everybody. And they're just happy to be there and they don't want any chaos. Right? Am I right? Okay. Well, I have 4 children. And I don't know why, silly me, I thought my children have the same mother and father, so they are going to all be similar. And I had my firstborn, and she was a hot mess express. She was very strong-willed, like a little stick of dynamite. And then I had daughter number 2, Emily, and she was laid back, and she was easygoing. And I'm like, okay, well, they're different. It's night and day, but I can deal with that. Then I had my son, Taylor. And Taylor was a very serious little baby. I would put him in the swing, and he would just furrow up his little brow like, why am I going backwards? Why am I going forwards? The whole time this was him. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that's a boy trait. You know, I've never had a boy. I didn't grow up with brothers. Maybe boys are serious. Then as Taylor got older, so sweet around the house, like so sweet and just loving, way more than the girls. And then we'd get to church, and we went to a smaller church, and we'd been there for a while. They knew Kelsey, they knew Emily, and Taylor would be walking down the hall, and they'd say, "Good morning, Taylor." And he would look at them, and he'd go, "Urgh." And I was like, wow. And I'm from the South. In the South, we do not growl, ever. Ever, never. And I was just like, wow, hey, buddy, stop growling. And he would, "Urgh." And so we get home, and I was like, why are you growling? And he goes, I don't like them. And I'm like, you don't know them. And all they're doing is telling you hello and good morning. Sweetie, put a smile on your face and say good morning. And he was like, no. So I called my friend, who was about 10 years older than me, and I said, I do not understand what is going on with Taylor. He growls at people at church. She starts laughing. She thinks it's so funny. And I said, I don't think this is funny. And she said, he is a melancholy. He's a blue. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, you need to read the book by Florence Littauer, Personality Plus for Parents. And it's going to tell you all about your son. Well, I did, and I started reading it, and I was like, that's Taylor. Taylor is a grouch pot. Let me show you. This is Easter picture. These are the girls. Look at Taylor. But you got to admit he's cute's a button, right? I mean, he's so cute. Anyways, one lady asked me if I dyed his hair at church, like he's got blonde hair. I'm like, yeah, I do. In my spare time, I'm dyeing my 2-year-old's blonde hair. Anyways, I don't have time for that mess. But he was like that. But then at the house, He was so sweet, and I just didn't understand it. So as I'm reading the book, Florence starts talking about the Melancholies and how they are not people. They are to themselves kind of people. They're introverts. They don't like people to get in their space. What were those people doing? Those horrible Christians on Sunday morning. What were they doing? They were being so friendly and saying good morning, but they were moving into his space. And he didn't like it. And the only way he knew how to tell them to stop is he would growl. So I was like, newsflash. I have a melancholy son. This is going to be joyful for me. So, because as you can guess, I'm a yellow. Anyway, so Taylor and I made a pact, and I just said, just nod, and I'll try to keep them at bay. And he said, okay. So that was our pact, and that's what got us through. But in the book, Florence talks about a verse that we all know, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And in the book, she goes to great lengths about talking about train up a child in the way he should go, not you as a mom. So I am the opposite. Yellows and blues are opposite. And I changed it to the colors years ago when I started teaching this because it's just easier. Yellows are sanguines, blues are melancholies, reds are cholerics, and green is phlegmatic, okay? But we're going to stick with the colors because it's easy. Train up a child in the way he should go, not me as a mom. But how many times as moms have we thought, I just don't understand this child. They're so different from me. They think so crazy. I don't understand it. Well, I truly believe that you have to be a student of your children and learn the way that God has hardwired them. Because he tells us that in Proverbs, that he knit us together in our mother's womb, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made, right? So tonight, I want to give y'all a 30,000-foot view of the temperaments, all of them. And it's going to be a little bit longer talk because Lindsay wanted me to combine these two talks, and it's so much fun. I think y'all are going to have a great time. But we're going to look at the high level of this. We're going to look at the strengths and the weaknesses. And then we're going to get into the 4 core needs of each of the temperaments. This is also going to help you in your marriage. This is also going to help you in your workplace. And you'll be like, that's why you're acting the way you're acting. You're a red, you're a blue, you're a green, you're a yellow, whatever. And then we'll have a better understanding of each other. But definitely with your children. And I have to say, my kids are 34 years old now on down. And I still go back to all this stuff. I do. So let's start with our yellows because they're fun. Every temperament has a key word, and they all get what they want out of a certain way. So the yellows, their key word is fun. They just want to have fun. This isn't going to be on your notes right there, but y'all just listen and I'll fill you in. So their key word is fun. They get what they want out of charming people. So if you have a little yellow son or a yellow daughter and you're like, I don't know how they talk me into this all the time. Listen, I'm a yellow. I was in the 2nd grade living in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a little bit bigger than where we are right now. It's a busy town, right? So, busy city. So I went to a Christian private school on the other side of where I lived. I took a bus. And one day we took a field trip to this little Baptist Bible bookstore. And I found this beautiful picture. Now that I've been out here where y'all live, I think it was clicked in your area because it was like this beautiful lake with the mountains all around it. Had this verse at the bottom. And I'm like, my mom needs this so bad. It was cut out of like a piece of bark off of a tree. And I'm like, my mom has to have this. So I gathered up all my money, and I go to my dad, who's the only person I know that drive besides my mom. And I said, Dad, will you take me to this Bible bookstore over in Marietta somewhere? And he goes, no, I don't have time to do that, Karen. And because I didn't know the name of the bookstore, I didn't know where it was, anything. And he goes, no, I'm sorry. And I said, okay. The only other driver I know, other than my mom, which she can't take me because it's her gift, is my bus driver. So I sat behind my bus driver with the money in my pocket every day for 2 weeks. And I asked him, will you stop? Will you stop? Will you stop? I got my money. I'm ready to go. I know where it is. It's in the store. It's on the second aisle, halfway down. I'll just run in. I'll get it real quick, and then I'll run out. 2nd grade, guys. And he said, Karen, I cannot stop this bus for you. And I'm like, seriously, I will be so fast. Nobody will even know. So one day, he pulls into the shopping center. Yes way. And he goes, you have 5 minutes. So I jump out of the bus, I run in there, and my sister's sitting in the very back of the bus, and she goes, what are we doing? And they're like, some little girl is in there buying something. And she goes, I guarantee you that's Karen. And it was. And it's still hanging in my mom's kitchen to this day. Yes. All right, next one is green, the peaceful people. That's their key word. They want peace. Greens just want everybody to get along, everybody to love each other, and it's so wonderful. They get what they want through procrastination. Does that ring a bell? I had a little green, lovely little daughter, Emily, and I would say, Emily, go clean up your room, and she'd be like, okay, Mommy. Never argued back, never pitched a fit. And then an hour later, I'd walk by her room, and it was a total mess. And I'm like, Emily, I thought you were going to clean up your room. I will later. And I'm like, oh, you are just a stinky poo. And she was a procrastinator, still is to this day. Still is to this day. The reds, their key word is control. Their key word is control. They come out of the womb wanting to be in control. Oh, I see. We're going to go over this in just a second. We're not there yet. I'm just giving you the high level right now. So, sorry about that. So they come out of the room. They want control. That's what they want. They have a way of doing things, and they want to do it their way. They get what they want through their anger. You know, if you've got a little strong-willed boy, strong-willed girl, and you're not doing things their way, they get so angry, right? My sweet little Harper granddaughter is a red, and you play a make-believe game. I mean, it's make-believe, you know? And she'll be like, you're not doing it right. And I'm like, oh, I thought this was make-believe. I do what I want to do, you do. No, Mimi, you have to say it like this. You have to sit like that. You're doing it wrong. And I'm like, okay. I thought this was a fun little game we were playing, but silly me. Then we have our blues, and their key word is perfection. This was my son, Taylor. This is also my husband, Greg. They get what they want through moods. They just get moody. They just wake up and they're in a mood. And you're like, are you in a good mood or a bad mood? I'm in the middle, and I don't know why. When Greg and I first got married, we had been married, I don't know, maybe a month. And he came to me and was very serious. Blues are very serious. And he said, I got to talk to you about something that's really bothering me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, have I done something wrong? And he goes, well, you really have. And I said, okay. So we sit down, and he goes, I just got to tell you, you're putting the toilet paper on the wrong way. And I said, what? And he goes, I said, are you joking right now? And he goes, no, I'm very serious. It should be coming over the top. Well, no one ever shared that little rule with me, guys. And I said, where does it say that? And he goes, that's just the way it's done. That's the right way it's done. So, and paper towels fall in line with that too. So you're not trying to fumble in the middle of the night trying to find it. It's right on the top. I was like, are you for real? And he goes, yes, I am, and I need you to change that. And I was like, yes, sir. Greg was in the Navy, in case y'all didn't know. Yes. So, as a parent, it's our job to learn how our children are wired and to learn what temperament they are and to work with their temperament instead of against them, right? The key to loving your child is to truly know them. Now we're going to go through the strengths and the weaknesses. I'm just going to give y'all a little tip. They're in your packet. So she's going to put it up there. You're not going to be able to see it, but it's all right here, okay? So, but I'm going to talk about it. So let's start with our yellows. Their strengths. They're talkative. They're great storytellers. They're emotional and demonstrative. They love to, demonstrative. They're enthusiastic and expressive, cheerful and bubbly. They're wide-eyed. They're innocent. They live in the present. They never think about the past. If someone asks me, what do you regret in motherhood? I don't regret anything because I don't think about it. It's done. The scars are there. We've moved on. My children have gone to counseling. It's fine. Let's just move on. They're always a child. They charm others to do their work. I have tons of stories I could share with y'all on that. I'll spare you the details. Just believe it. It's true. Makes friends easily. They don't hold grudges. They apologize quickly, and they live a spontaneous life. You're like, let's go to Disney today. Let's do it. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be Disney World or Disneyland. Which way are we going? Their weaknesses. They are a compulsive talker. From kindergarten on, Karen is a delightful student. She talks too much. They exaggerate and they elaborate. Anything to make the story, right? Too happy for some. They can be egotistical. They're naive. They get taken advantage of. They're controlled by their circumstances. They forget easily. They put way too much stuff on their calendar because they tell everybody yes, because they want everybody to love and adore them, and then they make people mad because they forget. Undisciplined, they're easily distracted. They dominate conversations. They interrupt and they don't listen, and they make excuses. I know, that's sad. Anyways, moving on. The reds. Their strengths. They are leaders. These are your born leaders. I had 2 of these little nuggets, and they were fabulous. They're hard to parent at times, but they're not so hard once you understand them, truly. Once you start working with the red, really and truly, this is the honest to goodness truth. I would almost take a red any day of the week over a green because, and I had a green and I had a red, and I'll tell you why. The reds will look you in your face. They'll tell you, I'm not doing it. So then you know as a mom where you stand, right? The gauntlet's been thrown down. The greens will stand there, look at you in your face. Okay, Mommy, I'll go do that. And they're lying like a dog, straight to your face. At least you know where you stand with your reds, right? They're leaders. They must correct wrongs. I used to hate this. Abby, my youngest, she's a strong red, fire engine red. And I would mess up, and she'd be like, you didn't do that right. And I'm like, you're so annoying sometimes. Strong-willed and decisive, independent, self-sufficient. They exude confidence. This one mom asked me one time, how did you teach Kelsey all of her confidence? And I'm like, I have no idea. She just came out like that. I truly do not know where she gets all this confidence from. It's the way God's wired her. They're goal-oriented. They organize well. I was in a Ralph Lauren outlet store one time, and there was these shirts everywhere, just strewn from here to everywhere. And I look over, and Abby, my youngest, she was about 6 at the time, just sitting there folding them up, stacking them up nice and neat. I'm like, who are you? But they love it. They move quickly into action. They insist on production. They have little need for friends. It's not that they don't want friends. The reds are very loyal. They want good friends. And they also have an agenda, and they don't need a lot of friends to make them confident. They're just already confident. So their idea is get on the bus, get off the bus. I really don't care, but we're moving forward. So either get on, get off, it doesn't matter. They are usually right about things, which can be very annoying as a parent. Their weaknesses, they're bossy, you guessed it. They're impatient, they're quick-tempered. They come on way too strong. I used to tell Kelsey and Abby, you cannot come into a room 100% Kelsey or 100% Abby. You got to start in about 50%, and then you're already strong. You got to work your way up to 100%. Otherwise, people they're like, whoa, she's like a hurricane, kind of thing. Little tolerance for mistakes. They might be rude or tactless. It's just because they're blunt, to be quite honest. They demand loyalty. They dominate others. They know everything. They can do everything better, which a lot of times they can. Once again, where are your reds in the room? You need these people. And they have a hard time saying they're sorry. Our greens, their strengths. They're easygoing and they're relaxed, truly. Everybody says, who's your easiest child? Emily, hands down, by far. They're calm, they're cool, they're collected. Keep emotions hidden. They keep their emotions hidden. You need to know this, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want conflict and they don't want confrontation. So if they don't tell you what they're thinking, if they don't tell you what they're feeling, then it's okay. Emily, one time we moved to Georgia after we lived in Virginia for many years. Her little best friend from Virginia came to visit us. She was in the backyard with her friend, and then our neighbor behind her new best friend came over, and they were all in the backyard together. And all of a sudden, Emily, she's about 8, comes up to the house, and she's crying. And I'm like, what happened? Did y'all get in a fight? And she goes, no. And I said, well, then what happened? She goes, I just don't want to introduce Jessica to Mallory because I'm afraid they're not going to like each other, and then I'm going to have to pick, and that just really bothers me, and I don't want to go out there anymore. And I was like, Emily, are they fighting? No, they're talking, but what if they don't like each other? And I mean, just full-on meltdown. And I'm like, Emily, come on, babe. Nothing's even wrong. It might go wrong. It might. I don't want to do that. Because they don't like conflict. They don't like confrontation. They're competent and steady. They're peaceful and agreeable. They have administrative ability. They find the easy way. Sometimes people think they're lazy. They're not. They work smarter, not harder, okay? They're good listeners. They have many friends because they're so sweet and they agree with everybody. They have compassion and concern. Weaknesses. And y'all know that one. If you watch the podcast at all, if you watch it, Emily's crying like every other episode. I looked over at her the other day. I'm like, are you crying? And she goes, well, that was just really sad what you just said. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Come on, Emily, we're never going to get through this. Okay, weaknesses. They're fearful and worried. If I go to the doctor, I literally do not tell Emily because she automatically thinks I have cancer and I have 2 weeks to live. So I just don't tell her. I don't tell her till it's all done, the blood's been drawn, and it's all good because she just literally cannot handle it. Indecisive, avoids responsibility. Indecisive, let's pause there. Emily's birthday one time, 10 years old. So I said, we're going to do something fun for you. We're going to go off for your birthday, go to lunch, and you can pick wherever we go to lunch, and we'll go shopping. We'll do whatever you want to do. So we get to this intersection near where I live, and, if we go right, we go up towards the outlet mall. If we go left, you go to the outlet mall. Right, you go down towards Atlanta. Straight, you go over to another section. I said, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Well, it's not my birthday. Where do you want to go? Well, what do you want for lunch? And I'm like, it's not my birthday. Do you want pizza? Do you want Mexican? Do you want burgers? Do you want, what other kind of food is there? Whatever. And she goes, what do you want? I'm like, Emily, come on. She literally started crying. And she's like, I just don't want to make you mad. I'm like, oh my gosh. I want Mexican. Okay, we went and got Mexican. They're indecisive. They avoid responsibility. They have a quiet will of iron. Hear me, moms. Do not back your greens into a corner. You will lose that battle every single time. If you have a husband that's a green, do not back him into a corner. You're going to lose that battle every single time because they have a will of iron. They lack self-motivation. They have a hard time getting moving. They resent being pushed. They have no sense for urgency, indifferent to plans. They resist change, and they would rather watch. Moving on to our blues, their strengths. They're deep and thoughtful. They're analytical. They're processors. They're serious and purposeful. When Greg and I got married, he was so serious. I'm walking at the top of the aisle and he's at the bottom. He was so serious. And so I'm walking down and I'm saying hey to people along the way. And we get to the hotel that night and he goes, you are not serious at all about our vows. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I showed up. I was there. Am I going to be rude, not telling people hello? Is I going down the aisle? That would be annoying. No. You don't have to be so serious. I've got the ring on the hand. We've lasted 38 years. I think I'm pretty serious. What do y'all think? He was very serious. Okay, talented and creative. They're sensitive to others, and they're also sensitive to themselves. They're self-sacrificing. They are idealistic. They're schedule-oriented. Taylor started wearing a watch when he was 4 years old. 4 years old. And he would constantly tell me when I was going to be late. They are idealistic. They're schedule-oriented. They're perfectionists. They have high standards for themselves and for others. They're orderly and organized. They make friends cautiously because they're always making sure, is this friend going to be a good friend? Are they're going to ditch me one day? They're content to stay in the background. They can solve other people's problems. They have a deep concern for people. Their weaknesses. They remember the negative. They can be moody and depressed. They are self-centered. They're too introspective. They're not people-oriented. It's not that they don't like people. They're just not extroverts. They're not people-oriented. They're depressed over imperfections. Sweet Greg has accomplished so much in his life. Top Gun pilot, Mr. Wonderful, Extraordinaire, everything. And he'll say, I just haven't done anything with my life. And I'm like, whoa. Then if I don't have a prayer or anything, because I haven't done anything, so whatever. They want everything to be perfect. They're hesitant to start projects. One Sunday we were sitting there, and he'd been complaining about our basement. It was just messy and dirty. They're not spontaneous at all. And he's sitting there complaining about the basement. I said, well, let's just get up. I got up. Let's just get up. Let's go down there right now. Let's tackle it. And he goes, what? And I said, let's just go. It's Sunday afternoon. We don't have anything to do like the rest of the day. We could just get in there, just one room. Let's just go. Let's just do it. And he's like, we can't just go down to the basement and start willy-nilly throwing things out. And I'm like, yes, we can. This is trash pile. This is a good pile. Karen, I have to go to Costco. I have to get buckets. I have to label them. I have to get the right shelving units down there. I have to have a plan. This is really stressing me out, everything you're saying right now. And I'm like, well, you're stressing me out by complaining all the time. Let's do something. Let's get up. No, we didn't do a darn thing. They have a deep need for approval. I love you, Greg, so much. I'm so glad you're here. They're critical of others. They're suspicious. They're unforgiving. Now, y'all think about that. Suspicious. So here you got the yellow that's never suspicious of a darn thing, and you got a blue that's suspicious of everything. And then God, in his, humor, puts those two people together. That's fun. Let me tell y'all. Yellows and blues are opposite. Reds and greens are opposite. We're going to talk about that. Yellow and green are very relational. Yellows and greens are relational. Reds and blues are task-driven. The task is more important than the relationship. The yellows and reds are positive, and they're decisive. And then the greens and the blues are negative and indecisive. They have a hard time making a decision. Why is it so important that you learn all this stuff? Because you, as a mom, have a lot of influence on your children, whether you realize it or not. My son is very much blue. He's really navy blue. His second color is red. And over his lifetime, after studying and learning, I learned to start working with Taylor instead of against him. And I had to push him in some areas, and then I had to throttle back on some areas. Instead of giving big birthday parties like I wanted to do, they had to be small. They had to be quiet. Taylor doesn't like to be sung happy birthday. I don't understand that. There's no part of my human body understands that. But he doesn't like the attention drawn on him. When he was 18, we all sang him happy birthday because I thought he'd outgrown it. He had not. He told me, how many times do I have to tell you I don't like this, Mom? And I'm like, I'm sorry. But over the years, Taylor sort of grew into himself. He sort of found his rhythm. He found what worked. We talked about the blues being very thoughtful and deep. Whenever I started Birds on a Wire, Taylor, if it was raining outside, I didn't even notice it was raining because the yellow, we don't notice anything. So he would take an umbrella, walk down to the end of the driveway, and walk the moms up with an umbrella. And they were like, did you make him do that? And I'm like, I didn't even know he was outside doing it. But that's how thoughtful he was. So when he was in middle school, he got in the car one afternoon, and he was very down and out. And I said, what's going on, buddy? And he said, I just don't fit in. I said, what do you mean? And he said, I'm not in the jock group. I'm not in the band. I'm not in the real scholastic group. I'm not over here. I'm not over there. I'm not in drama. I'm not in any of these things. I just don't fit in. And he was really down. And I just said, you know what, Taylor? Your biggest attribute is your heart. I said, you told me that last month there was a new kid in your school, and you saw him sitting at the lunch table by himself on a distant table. You got up from your friends, and you went over and you sat down by this boy, and you sat there and you talked to him. And I said, there's not many seventh graders that would do that. First off, that would even notice, and secondly, that would put themselves out there to do that. And I said, and that's the way God hardwired you. And I said, so I think if you will start following after that part of you, then you will go very far in life. And for whatever reason, that day, he actually listened. You know, that doesn't always happen with your children. This is Taylor, his senior year in high school. He won Homecoming King, and that's the Homecoming Queen, and of a 5A school, which is a ton of kids. And I just thought, you know what? That's my awkward little growling boy. He sort of outgrew it. And he still is an introvert. He still can be negative. He still has all of his quirky ways, but he did learn how to live in his strengths and not his weaknesses. And I really think that's our job as moms, is to teach them what their strengths are and to celebrate that and say, these are your weaknesses, but this is why you have the Lord, right? To walk alongside you and to help you in these areas. So now let's look at the core needs of each of the temperaments. And let's start with yellow. So top left corner. Yellow needs attention, they need affection, they need approval, and they need acceptance. And listen, I've told Greg, hopefully it's on his phone. We should all go check it. I know it is because I've seen it. I've told Greg, take a picture of this and circle the yellow because this is what I need. You know, but that's okay because I've circled the blue. I know what he needs. The reds, they need loyalty. They need sense of control. They need appreciation, and they need credit for their work. The reds don't always have to be in control. They really don't. They just want to know someone is in control and that there's a sense of control, that things aren't going willy-nilly. The greens, they need peace and quiet. They need feeling of worth. And they need feeling of worth, I think, because a lot of times the greens can get overlooked. So therefore, they don't feel like anybody's noticing them or they're worthy, but they are. So you need to pay attention to that. They need lack of stress and respect. And the blues are the 4 S's: sensitivity, support, space, and silence. This stays with them. When Taylor got married, his wife, he's now in the Navy. He used to live in California, was in F-18 squadron out there. And she called me one day and she goes, Taylor comes home sometimes and he's just in a mood. And I said, yep. And she said, well, I just follow him around the house and I ask him what I can do to help. And the more I do that, he just really seems like it bugs him. And I said, it does. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, what do I do? And I said, you need to give him his space. She goes, that's really hard for me. And I said, I'm sure it is, but that's what he needs. He just needs his space. He'll come out of the mood, but you don't know what happened at work. F-18, that's a hard community, you know. You just got to give him his space. He needs time. And she goes, by himself? And I'm like, definitely by himself. She's like, okay. What do we do with our yellows? We have to be positive with our yellows, even if you're correcting them. You have to be positive with your yellows. You need to think of your yellows like little flowers. If you're not positive, they just start wilting, and it's not a pretty sight. You need to adore and praise them. You need to promote creativity, and you need to allow verbal expression. Greg and I, he travels all the time. He's a FedEx pilot, and he comes home, and in his perfection, he's looking around the house, and he's thinking of ways he can help me, okay? I've been by myself for 2 weeks holding down the fort. I've done a pretty good job. The house is still standing. The children are alive. Nobody's been, broken bones, nothing. So he started helping me by telling me things that could be better around the house, which annoyed me greatly. And I told him, I said, we have a new rule. It's called the 24-hour rule. And you may not give me one piece of constructive criticism or help in any form, shape, or fashion for 24 hours. Okay? Because I can't take it. I'm going to go ballistic if you correct me one more time. And he goes, okay. And he's even now, 38 years in, I still hold to that rule. And he'll be like, you need to. And I'm like, oh, I have 5 more hours. No. What not to do with the yellow? Don't be too serious, especially as a parent. Think about it this way. If you are red or blue, you're going to tend to be serious because life is serious. It's all about choices. We don't make the wrong choices, we're going to end up at McDonald's flipping burgers for the rest of our lives. Yellows, you need to get your act together, and life is not butterflies and rainbows, so stop it. You know what I mean? You're going to lose your yellow. Absolutely, 100%. Don't demand perfection because it's not in them, period. People think, oh, I bet you, Karen, like to do everything perfect. I'm like, I never do anything perfect because I know life's not perfect and I don't even try. So don't consume their time with a lot of details because they're not listening. Just giving y'all a little help here. Tell your yellows they're doing a good job. Find something that they're doing right. All right, reds, their core needs: loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, and credit for work. Listen, this is how instrumental this can be in your parenting journey. Abby, my youngest, when she hit puberty, she was going into puberty and I was going out, if you know what I mean. And we were just fighting like cats and dogs all the time. So I sent her to this lady because she's such a strong red, and she would just fuss at me about everything. I mean, I don't know, the way I walked across the kitchen floor, it was too loud, or it was too this, it was just, And as a yellow, it was just too much, and I just wanted to run, all the time. So I just said, I think you need to go see Kathleen, and she needs to teach you how to live in your strengths of your reds, because you and I can't even have a conversation about it without us getting into an argument. So she did. So then Kathleen, of course, wanted me to come in, and so I did. But we did an exercise, and I'm going to share with y'all, and I think it's great. Kathleen said, I want y'all to define your core needs. So I defined mine of attention, affection, approval, and acceptance. And basically, bottom line is that approval one, I just said, every time, Abby, you fuss at me, you're not approving of me as a mom. And it's not that I want her to be my best friend, because I don't, but just getting beat down all the time was really starting to affect me. And then Abby started to define hers, and where she camped out was loyalty. And she said, you're not loyal. I was like, what are you talking about? And she just said, you're not loyal. And then she started crying. So I was like, oh, wow, we just hit a lot of emotions here. And she just said, I gave you some earrings 3 years ago, and you gave them to Emily. I was like, what earrings are you talking about? So her and Kelsey and Emily all went in and got me a pair of these Tory Burch earrings. And I wore them. They were very cute, but they infected my ears. So I put them in my drawer. You don't wear earrings that infect your ears. It hurts. So 3 years goes by. Emily comes home from college. She sees the earrings in the drawer, and she says, can I have these? I said, yeah, of course. They infect my ears. Abby saw them, pitched a hissy fit, and because of that, I'm not loyal. I'm like, I forgot. And she says, I know. And that's why you're not loyal, because you don't remember. And I'm like, wow. So let me just tell you this. I don't let anything Abby gives me. I keep it forever. It's going to go in the coffin with me when I die. But it was a great exercise because I learned that was really deeply hurting her. And I never meant to hurt her, ever. But she said, I saved my money to buy you those earrings. It was $20, but that's not much. But at my age, it was a lot. And I'm like, you're exactly right, Abby. Will you forgive me? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. So we hugged it out. Wow. Define your definitions here. It makes a big difference. What to do with your reds. Speak logically to them, even if they are little. Even if they're little. If you have a red 2-year-old, they like it when you speak logically to them. Be direct. Here's the deals about the reds. They can handle directness. They love it, actually, because then they know where they stand. Don't beat around the bush. That annoys them. Promote their intelligence. They're very smart. Let them make decisions even at young ages. But just make sure they're controlling something. It's just not you. You are the mom, and God's given you that right. It says, children, obey your parents. And in parentheses, if you look real close, even if you're red. No, it doesn't say that. But that's the truth. Even if you're red, you have to obey your parents. What not to do. Don't lecture your reds. Don't limit their emotions. They have a lot of them. Don't be authoritative, because when you come in authoritative, they're going to come right back at you with authority. So that's what Abby and I were doing. So I had to learn to listen to Abby. And even if I wasn't going to agree with her, I just sat there and I listened. And I'm like, you have some really good points. I appreciate you sharing them with me. The answer is no. You're not going to stay out till 2 o'clock in the morning. But great points, really great points. But your curfew is still 11. So there we go. Never embarrass them in front of others. They tend to be really bossy, so instead of saying, you're so bossy all the time, just say, I love how you delegate things. But I used to tell my 2 reds, you can be a strong leader, but you can also be a leader that people like to follow. So why don't we learn the skill of being a good leader that people want to follow? And people don't like to be told what to do all the time. So give them credit for their work. Let them know they did a good job. And then the greens, let's look at their core needs. Their core needs is peace and quiet, feeling of worth, lack of stress, and respect for who they really are. What to do? Be kind in your criticism. And I'm going to add, watch your tone with your greens, especially if you are red. You're probably thinking you're not raising your voice, and you're not in your mind. You're just passionate. I've been guilty of that. But they think you're yelling. You're screaming at them. So be kind and watch your tone. Listen quietly. Gently promote involvement. When Emily was a junior, I said, I think you should run for a class officer. I think everybody likes you. That's usually who wins, is the ones that everybody likes. And she says, I don't know if I could do that. And I said, I think you'd be a great secretary. Like, you don't need to run for president, treasurer you probably don't want, but I think a secretary, you'd be good. So she ended up running, and she ended up winning, and then did it again her senior year. But you have to gently promote them. You can't, tell them to do it, because then they'll be like, no, I'm not. Accept their individuality. When she was a senior in high school, she was on the homecoming court, and we went to look at gowns, and she wanted this bright orange gown. And I was like, woo, that's really loud. And she goes, I love it. And I was like, okay, let's get it. And so we did. What not to do. Don't be insensitive to them. Don't expect social interactions. If they don't want to interact, then let it be. Don't demand them to conform. The greens really want to help, so sometimes it can be hard to motivate them. But since they love to help, say, hey, can you, and they're also relational, say, hey, can you come in the kitchen and just be with me and help me clean up the kitchen? And let's do that together, and then we can talk about your day. They'll be like, yeah, I'd love to do that, because it's relational, and they are helping you, and they love those things. The greens work smarter, not harder. And here's the other thing to keep in mind with your greens. If they are interested in a project, they will work and work hard. If they're not interested, they could care less. Point taken, Emily cleaning her room. She could care less about a clean room. Absolutely care less. I go into her house now as she's an adult, and there's just certain rooms I don't even go into because it stresses me out beyond measure. But now Emily loved horses, and growing up, she rode horses, and I could drop her off at the barn at 9 a.m., pick her back up at 5 p.m., and she would work hard all day with those horses, cleaning out the stalls, cleaning out their hooves, giving them a shampoo, the whole thing. She didn't care. So they just have to like what they're doing, and then they will give it their all. All right, blues. Their core needs: sensitivity, support, space, silence. Space is key for a blue. When Taylor went to school, he'd come in, he'd get a snack, he'd go straight down to the basement to watch SpongeBob. He had been on all day, performing, doing the best, achieving all the things, and he just needed some space. And I had to learn as a mom to give him his space. And do not ask him how his day was until he had been home for about 2 hours. Sensitive. Taylor used to cry and be like, it's so hard being the only boy in this house. And I'm like, I know, it is hard. Silence. You know, sometimes when Greg is home for the holidays and all the family's there and the 6 grandkids are there and it's just loud, he'll be like, I'm going to go walk outside for a little bit. He just needs to get away. It just gets too much. So the support. Cards, words of affirmation, acts of service are all good traits, are all good things to do with your blues. So, things to do: be sensitive, help them feel secure, be sincere. They don't like fluff. Taylor played golf. Golf is a hard sport. And I'd say, you played so good today. He'd be like, Mom, don't do that. I did not play good today, and don't tell me I played good today, because I know I didn't play good today. And I'm like, okay, sorry about that. Promote their creativity. What not to do: don't make them feel guilty, because they make themselves feel guilty already all the time. They've got those high standards. Don't expect spontaneity. We were in Charleston one time, and we had this afternoon that was free, and right across the bridge is this other little area called Mount Pleasant. And I told Greg, we have a few hours. Let's just go across the bridge to Mount Pleasant. Let's just drive around. Well, what are we going to do over there? Well, I don't know. We're just going to drive across the bridge, and we're just going to see what's over there. And he goes, well, what do I put in my GPS? I don't think you're going to put anything in your GPS, because we're just going to drive across the bridge, and we're just going to see what's on the other side of the bridge. And we're just going to ride around, and we might find something. Well, what are we going to find? I don't know. But you know what? I was asking him to be spontaneous, which he had a really hard time doing. Now, I have to give him creds. Today, we were very spontaneous. We found Lake Crescent. We found 2 waterfalls that I can't marry, that one, and then Meredith Falls. We had a wonderful, spontaneous day. And I told him, didn't I? You were so spontaneous today. Thank you. That was lovely. Don't demand perfection from your blues, because they are already demanding it from themselves. All right, listen. This can be overwhelming. Y'all probably feel, especially if you've never heard of this stuff, you probably feel like you're drinking from a fire hydrant tonight. So it can be overwhelming. I just want to tell everybody, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. We have tons, Birds on a Wire has tons of podcasts on this, and our podcast is called Wire Talk. You can just type in personalities or colors or whatever. You can go on the website, have your husband take the quiz, have your children take the quiz, and find everybody's color, and then you start working with each other, and like, oh, you're a blue-green, you're a red-blue, you're a yellow-green, whatever. You know, usually you have 2 colors, a dominant and then a secondary. And I always tell people, James 1:5, James writes and says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask and God will give it generously. And that's exactly what I did when I was raising my children, because I needed all the wisdom God would give me with my children. So invite God into your journey of raising your children, and I promise you it will go so much better because he is the creator of all of them. All right, let me close this in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for knitting our children together. God, thank you for fearfully and wonderfully making them. Lord, I just pray that if this is the first time people have heard this or it's the 100th time, you just brought something new tonight that they can take and apply to their children, to their families, to their marriages. I just love, Lord, that we are always learners and we're always learning. And I just honestly pray that you would just join us in this journey and that we would just create wonderful families that love you and love each other. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we've got snacks and coffee and water outside. So we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about our purpose in motherhood. All right. Yes. What colors are you?
I'm mostly a green, but it's like,
Okay, good. I love that. Well, Greg just told me out there that it's been over 15 minutes. It's actually almost 20. So that means we got to get started because he's on the schedule. Okay, could you tell them we're going to start? Oh, okay. You know, the yellow in me, I don't want to start without anybody. Huh? There, oh yeah, nobody wants me to sing a song. Not in my, oh, there you go. That's true. If you heard my voice, you'd be like, no, please stop. There you go. And I can sing with other people, so we could all sing something together. Actually, I love to sing. I always tell people whenever I get to heaven, I'm going to be the one just floating around singing. They're going to be like, she won't hush. And you're like, she's finally got a good voice, so she's singing. Okay, let's talk about this next talk that we're going to talk about is not quite so long, so that's good for you guys. But it's about, I'm so sorry, I should not have put this chewy thing in my mouth. It's about our purpose in motherhood. And I was talking to some of y'all out there that don't have children, and that's okay because this talk applies to all aspects of our lives, right? So, but in motherhood particularly, just adjusting in motherhood can be a difficult thing, or it was for me. You know, I went from a working person. I had a great job. I loved it. I got pregnant. I was super excited, and I was like, you know, Greg was in the Navy. He was a fighter pilot and doing all the things, and I was like, you know, he's gone so much, I need to be a stay-at-home mom because we lived far away from our family. I didn't have anywhere to leave the baby and all this kind of thing. So, quit my job, and a few months into it, I found out it was a little boring. She didn't talk, you know. She didn't talk. She didn't do anything. She just laid there, you know, and that was really boring for me. And so I was just like, I want to do something. I want to do something because, you know, how do I know if I'm succeeding in motherhood if I don't know really what I'm doing? And I didn't. And all she did was eat, sleep, and poop. And, you know, it just wasn't great. And so anyways, I wanted to be a good mom, but I didn't know how to measure my success. You know, in life, there was always things I could measure my success on. Like when I was in elementary school, grade school, high school, you know, grades was a good indicator if you were succeeding or if you were failing. You know, an A was good, an F was bad. We all know that. Moving on into the workforce, you had reports that were due, you were answering to a boss, you had sales stuff and all that kind of stuff, and that you could always know, okay, I'm trekking, I'm doing the right thing, I'm moving up on the corporate ladder, whatever it is. So, but whenever I became a mom, I couldn't judge it. And I started to think, okay, how do I know if I'm a good mom? Is it the amount of diapers that I change every day? Because if that's the deal, then I'm winning. You know, Greg came home one time. He was there for the weekend, and he said, man, I've had 2 poopy diapers today. And I'm like, well, let's just throw you a party because that's amazing. I have done like 20 poopy diapers this week, but I'm glad you did your 2. You know, and then maybe was it how busy I was driving the kids around? Did that make me a good mom? Did I need to be a room mom whenever they got into elementary school? Was that the best indication? Was it the best birthday parties, you know, to give? Was it your child's behavior? That's sort of what I would always link my performance to, is my child's behavior. But if you have children, that's a scary thing to do because children make terrible report cards. Some days you're going to get an A. Other days you're going to get a big fat F. And your child's going to tell you you just got an F, right? Their grades, all of that kind of stuff. I don't know about around here, but where I live, this used to always get on my nerves. my child's an honor roll student. And I'm like, nah. I'm so sick of those little, bumper stickers. So what? My child's a great child too, even though if they're not on the honor roll, who cares, But their performance in sports, all that is what I was sort of grappling with. Like, does this give me purpose? Does this give me purpose? Does this give me purpose? And like I said, children make bad report cards. I remember one trip, we lived in Virginia. We went down to Georgia. It's like a 10-hour drive. I just had Emily, so she's my second. So Kelsey's 2, and then there's Emily. So this trip, Emily had just been born, and Kelsey was just a nightmare. I mean, the whole trip. She wasn't obeying. She wasn't minding. She wasn't sleeping really well at night. And she was just a pill, to be quite honest. And, and then they didn't see my parents that often, so that whenever they did see my parents, and, they're telling them, don't do that or whatever, Kelsey would just stand there and look at, like, my dad or my mom like, who are you? Like, what are you? Because she's 2. She doesn't know this is her grandparent. Like, these are my parents. She has no clue, nor does she care, So my dad made a comment to me that, she wasn't very obedient. So for me, that's an F on my report card, right? So I remember we were that morning, we got up really early to go back up to Virginia. And Emily was in the little baby carrier thing, being sweet, like this little baby here, just precious, just not doing anything wrong because she's 2 months old. And Kelsey's, running around the kitchen, and Dad, he said, talking to Emily, he goes, I just pray you'll grow up and stay as sweet as you are right now. And then he looks over at Kelsey. And I just was like, I have just failed as a mom. I'm such a horrible. So I was in a bad mood all the way back up to Virginia. And Greg said at one point, what is wrong with you? And I just said, did you hear Dad's comment? I mean, he thinks I'm a bad mom. He thinks Kelsey's a brat. She probably is. I mean, I don't know what to do. She was a pill this trip. And Greg just said, look, Karen, she's just 2. She just had a baby sister. She's trying to figure out her place. It's not the end of the world. And I said, but you don't understand. You've never struggled in your purpose. You know what I mean? You've known what your purpose is all along. Heck, whenever I had Kelsey, your life got better. Greg was selected for Top Gun 2 months after Kelsey was born. 2 months. And he's like, comes home, he's so excited. I got selected for Top Gun. I'm like, oh, is it really in California? Because I'd seen the movie. And he goes, yeah. And I was like, is it really 6 weeks long? And he goes, yeah. He's so excited. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I guess I don't get to go, right? The Meg Ryan, I don't get to go. And he goes, no, not at all. You don't get to go. And I was just like, this isn't fair. So here I am. I'm struggling with my purpose. And then I'm struggling with life's not fair. Because I don't know why. I really thought being a parent, it was like a 50-50 thing. That's what it was going to be. We had a good marriage. It was, laughing, right? I should have known. It's not 50-50, ladies. And for those of y'all that don't have babies, it's not 50-50. It's 100 on the mom, and I don't know, whatever percentage of the dad. And Greg was a great dad, truly. But it wasn't 50-50. Greg's body never changed, ever. Ever. His hormones didn't change. He was sort of clueless, like he'd wake up in the morning, Kelsey slept so good last night. And I'm like, really? Did she? No, she actually didn't. She was up 3 times. But I'm glad you think she did. That's awesome. That's really great. Yeah, I'm laughing because all y'all know it's true. I'm the one that made all the doctor runs. I'm the one that was the taxi cab driver. I'm the one that was constantly the bad cop. This podcast coming up in October, I just recorded it Monday. And this mom says, I'm the bad cop, my husband's the good cop. And, I said, welcome to the club. Absolutely. Somebody's got to be the bad cop. And that was me because we are home with the kids. So here I am. I'm trying to figure out what's my purpose in motherhood? How do I measure success? And maybe in your life, you're thinking, how do I measure success in my life? And then I was trying to figure out, it's not fair. Life's not fair. it's not, I thought it was going to be 50-50. Greg was going to be sharing all this stuff with me. And like I said, Greg was a great dad. 100% he was a great dad. But it was not the same. It wasn't. So what do we do with all that? So after 34 years of parenting, I want to help hopefully give y'all some encouragement on your purpose in motherhood and also to answer this fair question. So our key verse for tonight is Colossians 3:23 through 24. Paul says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. So this verse literally changes everything. It changes everything because it gets the point of view off of my child's behavior, off of my child's performance, off of me making and wanting everything to be 50-50, you know. It puts it back where it should be, and that's on me as a person. Whatever you do, work at it as unto the Lord. Whatever I do. And that, whether I'm in a workplace, whether I'm in school, whether I'm in my marriage, whether I'm being a mom, whether I'm being a daughter, or whatever it is I'm doing, I need to work at it as unto the Lord because it's the Lord I'm serving, not men. Okay? So, whatever I do, if I'm up at night with my baby, I need to work at it unto the Lord. If I'm changing diapers, if I'm telling my toddler to hurry up and get in the car and go get your shoes, and I don't know where your shoes are, but go get them. You know, helping your child do their homework. You know, listening to my daughter cry because her friend has hurt her feelings. You know, teaching my son how to drive a car. That was crazy. Whether I'm driving my child to practice, whether I'm picking them up, whether they're having a spend the night party, whatever, hosting a Christmas lunch, whatever it is, being a grandmother, where I am now. Whatever I'm doing, I need to do it as unto the Lord. You know, I went on a mission trip one time to China, of all places, and this mission trip, my daughter Emily wanted to go. She totally has a heart for the Chinese people, which I love. So she asked me to go with her, and I did. And this particular trip, we were working in this orphanage. And so our church would give these orphan workers some reprieve. They could go, and we took physical therapists and occupational therapists and all that over. And our team would work with the orphans. And so, but my job, the missionary that lived there, she had just had her second child. And so the leader of our team said, Karen, you go and mentor her because that would be such a gift to her. And I was like, well, okay, I can do that. You know, that's fine. And so I went. So every day, our team would come back together at the end of the day, and we'd sit in this coffee shop, and they would talk about how amazing their day was and how they loved on these kids. And all these kids are orphans, right? And there's something wrong with them. That's why they're in the orphanage. And so they were just talking about how much joy it brought them, and it was so fulfilling and all that. Me, on the other hand, I'm with the missionary's wife, which I was basically her maid for the week. And I'm not exaggerating, and there was nothing great about this mission trip, you know what I mean? I was doing her laundry, I was mopping her floors, I was cleaning her bathrooms. I would say, do you want to talk about, you know, being a mother of two and your husband traveling on? Nope, I need you to do this, 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 and this. I mean, every morning I'd get there, there'd be dishes in the sink, and I would work my tail off all day long. I would take the little toddler to preschool. It was just crazy. It was crazy. It was not what I had envisioned. And it was horrible, to be quite honest. It really was. And I'm sure she was just tired and hormonal herself, so we're going to give her a big old pass. But she wasn't the nicest. You know what I mean? I mean, she even told me one morning, I got there and the dishes were all in the sink and all the things. And she said, I'm going to have you mop my floors. They don't need it, but you're not going to be here Saturdays. I'm going to have you do it today. Okay, let me just hop right on that. And I did. And every day I would do that And then I'd come back and sit in this coffee shop with my team, and they were just talking about how amazing it was. And did you see JoJo and his face lit up and da-da-da? Karen, how was your time? And I'm like, it was horrible. It was slave labor, basically. And I never got a thank you. I'm a yellow, and I like approval and affection and some attention, okay? And she never said thank you, ever. Even when I left, she never said thank you. And it was just hard. And I remember having my quiet time in the morning, gearing up before I went back out there. I mean, I had to take a taxi to her house. The Chinese drivers, they drive crazy over there. You know what I mean? And it was scary and all that. But anyways, I get there, and I was just praying, and I was complaining to God one morning. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I raised all this money to come over here. She doesn't even appreciate anything that I'm doing. She doesn't even say thank you. And I'm very discouraged. And you know how sometimes the Lord just talks to you in just that quiet spirit, and he just said, who are you here to serve? And I didn't want to answer because it's him, right? That's why we go on mission trips, is to serve God. And I was like, you. And he's like, then do it. He brought this verse to my mind. Whatever you do, do it as you're working unto me and not to men. And that's basically, I wanted her approval. I wanted this missionary's wife's approval. Karen, thank you so much. I don't know what I would do without you. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And to be honest, I had forgotten, truly, how hard being a young mom was because my children were older. And she is the reason I wrote Survival Guide to Motherhood, because I was living it. I was back in those trenches. I was back in the weeds, and it is hard, right? And I wrote Survival Guide to Motherhood because God just showed me, even if you're doing the lowest work, cleaning her toilets, and she would take 2 naps every day. And I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not even exaggerating. I'd be like, are you awake? You know what I mean? But anyways, cleaning her toilets, I'm to do that unto the Lord. That's my purpose in motherhood. So what does that mean? Does that mean I need to have a good attitude with my children? Yes. Does that mean I can't complain? I know, right? Nobody look at me. Yes. Does that mean I have to have unconditional love when my child messes up? And cliff note here, side note, your child's going to mess up 100%. They're human, and they're going to mess up. So how do you have that unconditional love? Whatever you do, do it as you're working unto the Lord, because that's who you're serving. You're thinking, this is really hard. That's what I thought in China. This is really hard. And God was like, I know it's really hard, and you can't do this without me. And I could not. So midway through my week, I had an attitude adjustment. I quit noticing how many naps she was taking, even though I know it was 2. I would walk her daughter to preschool, and her daughter, at the time, I'm sure she's a lovely young lady at this point in her life, but at the time, she was very rude. She had blonde hair, and the Chinese don't have blonde hair. They have black hair, and they loved her, and they loved touching her hair, and she would be like, stop touching my hair. And we sat down in the park one day, and I just said her name. Don't want to say it right now in case y'all know her, but I just said, you know what? God has placed you in a country to where you look very different from everyone around you. And do you think you're showing, she's 3 years old, and I'm having this conversation with her. I said, do you think you're showing them love when you scream at them and tell them to stop? And she said, no. And I said, how could you show them love? And she said, I could smile and let them touch my hair. And I said, yeah, they're not hurting you. And they really weren't, you know. And I said, but you're beautiful to them. You're different. And they want to touch you. And I said, now, you know, I think you could do that. And she's like, yeah, because she was very smart. This little girl was very smart. And I just said, you know, and I started changing my approach And lo and behold, I was still doing the toilets. I still mopped the floors twice. I did all the dishes and all the things. And I started to have a better attitude because I started asking God, will you just show me how to love these people? Because they're sort of unlovable, this one lady anyways. And God did. He did. Our walk with Christ is imperative on how we parent. I used to pray for patience with my children. Don't ever do that. It's not a good idea. But the point is we have to invite God into our lives and ask him, give me wisdom on how to parent this child. When your child messes up and messes up big, I'm not talking about toddler mess up. I'm talking about teenage kind of mess up, 20 years old mess up, whatever. It takes a lot of love to love them unconditionally. And you can only do that with Christ loving your child through you. Does that make sense? So, let me give you some practical ways to start this. Number 1, practice what you preach. If you're teaching your children to love others, if you're teaching your children to be kind and compassionate and all of that, are you being kind and compassionate to your husband whenever, everybody's around? Like, think about that for a minute. Because I know me, especially when my kids were little, Greg would come in and I'd just start treating him like he was one of my children. Pick that up and do this and do that. And I'm not treating him well. You know what I mean? God convicted me on that. So if I want my children to treat others well, how am I treating others? If I'm fussing at people in traffic, that's not cool. They're watching the whole time. Practice what you preach. Listen to your child. Even when you know you're right and they are 100% wrong, listen to them. It doesn't mean they're going to change your mind. It doesn't mean anything, but it does mean that you're listening to them. You're listening to their point of view, even though you're thinking you're very misguided right now. And that's okay. You can think that, but you need to listen to them. Listen. Because think about how many times God listens to us. Right? He listens to us a lot. Okay, we also need to have unconditional love. We need to have unconditional love on the big things and unconditional love on the small things. Taylor did not want to comb his hair his entire second grade of his life. And I just told him, I'm going to let this one go. You don't have to comb your hair but one day a week, and that is Sunday, and you have to comb your hair when we go to church. And so he said, okay. And the bad thing with Taylor in second grade was we had moved back to Georgia, and the teachers that were getting him out of the car rider line were actually my teachers whenever I went to school. So, there's my child, and his hair's all, and I was just like, he just loves the crazy hair these days. And I just had to love him unconditionally. You have to love them unconditionally when they're not making wise decisions. I'm walking with a mom right now, and her daughter is in her 20s, and she's not making wise decisions at all. And this mom keeps telling me, she was raised better than this. And I said, I know that. But you know what? Adam and Eve had the perfect father in the perfect environment. He taught them everything they needed to know, and they still chose to do what they wanted to do. But God still loved them. And he redeemed the situation. He made a way for them to come back to him. We need to love our children unconditionally. And we need to love them unconditionally even when they're not perfect. Because there's no child out there that's perfect. Mary was the only one that got that one time, and that was Jesus. But I want to challenge all of us in this room to stop trying to control and start trying to influence your child. And that can start as young as an infant. One time when Emily just had Harper and she was nursing her, she was having a hard time, and she asked me to come over. So I came over, and I was sitting in her nursery, and she was trying to nurse the baby, and she was all just trying to control the situation, and I said, Emily, take a deep breath. Just sit there and look at Harper and start talking to her. And just she'll nurse. She'll figure it out. And so Emily sat there, and she started talking to Harper, and Emily started to calm down. She started to relax, so then Harper could latch on, and then y'all know the drill, and then Harper started nursing. And I just said, when you try to control things so hard sometimes, even as little as infants, it just doesn't work. But if you just calm down and take a breath and talk to her, it'll all work out. You know, whenever you've got that toddler and they're just get down on their level, literally get on your knees, look at them eye to eye. Taylor used to get so mad, and I'd just get down, I'd hold his little shoulders, and I'd be, hey, buddy, look at me, calm down, look at me in my eyes. And he's just, and he didn't talk till he was like past 2. And I said, I'm pretty sure you're cussing me out right now, but we're just going to not go with that. We're just going to stick here. And I'd just be like, hey, buddy, it's okay. It's okay. We will fix this problem of your Legos getting all torn up. We'll fix this. Just calm down. It's okay. Get on their level. You know, the older they get, Taylor came home one time in elementary school. He made a 55 on his test. It's not like Taylor at all. I said, what happened? And he's like, I know you're going to punish me. And I'm like, I just want to know what happened. And he goes, well, I'm pretty smart. And I said, yep, this isn't what you normally do. And he goes, so I just didn't study. I didn't think I had to. Oh, okay. How did that work out for you? And he goes, yeah, I need to study. And I said, yeah, I think so. I do. I think that's a good idea. Being a mom is tough. It is. And we need to have purpose. And we need to also realize that life isn't fair. It's not. And I always tell the moms that listen to Birds on Wire, we have to put our big girl panties on and suck it up and get to it. It's not fair. If you want it to be fair with your husband, then you're fighting a losing battle. It's just not. And that's okay. It's really okay. They're doing their job. We got to do our job, right? So I just want to leave us with this. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as you're working unto the Lord. And whether you're a mom or whether you're not a mom, that applies to every single thing we do in our lives. Whatever you do, work at it as unto the Lord. Let me close this in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, God, for giving us this challenge. And I just pray that you would just give us the courage to step into this and to allow that fairness piece just to leave us. It doesn't matter. It's not doing us any good. It's really not. And our purpose is not tied to our children or our job or anything else. Our purpose is living unto you. Help us all to remember that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we have some questions that y'all wrote in. I'm going to read them and answer them. And then if we have time, which we may not, we'll pass around a microphone. All right. Do your adult children have a close relationship with each other now? If yes, were you intentional to foster this? My adult children do have a very close relationship now. And I was intentional, but I didn't force it. I don't think you can force it. Just to get certain circumstances, they were all close in age, about 2 years apart. And they just all, I was telling Lindsay, I didn't let them lock themselves in their room. My oldest sister used to go in her room and lock it and lock me out, and I was number 3 in the lineup, so I always wanted to be in her room. So I didn't let them do that. But other than that, it just sort of would ebb and flow. And they weren't always close. Some would be closer some years and others, but eventually they all got there. But they are very close. How to support children when they make bad choices. How do we respond? I just think it depends on the age. When they're really little, I think we tell them why it's wrong. I think when you were parenting, we can't just say, don't do this and just leave it at that. We have to give them the reason why. You know, don't do this because blah, 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 blah. But I would let them know, like, hey, you made a unwise choice, but also try to get them to talk about it with you. Why did you choose that? Like me talking to Taylor, what happened? I mean, I could have figured out that he didn't study, but I wanted him to say it, you know? So get them to say what they did wrong and then say, how do you feel? Let them get to their own. Sometimes I think we answer for our children, and we don't need to. We need to let them sort of own it and sit in it. And if they feel bad, that's okay. That's the Holy Spirit working. So don't try to, it's okay. No, it's not. So let them feel the feelings and then come back around them, love them. I love you. You made a bad choice, but that's okay. I still love you. And as they get older, at a certain point, when they're adults and all that, there's only really so much you can say, but pray. That's what I always suggest. How do you train a strong-willed child? Well, we went over a lot of that tonight, but that's that red. You've got to let them have a sense of control, let them control something, give them credit for their work. Those 4 core needs, I'd go back to that. How to manage tantrums without losing your temper. 9 times out of 10, we lose our temper because we've given them too many chances. And on the 5th chance, we lose our minds. But if you'll address it right away, like within the first or second time you address it, it will also stop the ongoing stuff. So, as a yellow, what are ways you felt loved, heard, etc. when you were a kid? My dad was a red, blue probably. He gave a lot of praise, He was very affectionate and very, you're so great, you're so amazing, and I liked that, to be quite honest. My mom was a green, and she didn't give much, but we had a close relationship, but she just wasn't very demonstrative with her affections or love. But we spent a lot of time together, so I think that's how we sort of bonded, just spending time together. But Dad was very verbal. My child has an attitude of entitlement. What is a good way to deal with that, or what causes that? Entitlement, in my opinion, is whenever, they just demand certain things because it's owed to them, and it's a sign of privilege, and they're getting too much. So whenever I noticed that in my children, and of course I did, one time we had a housekeeper at the time, and she only came once a month. And one of my kids didn't clean up their room, and I said, well, go clean up your room. So-and-so's coming today. And they said, I'm not going to clean up my room. She's going to do it for me. And I just said, you just lost the privilege of her doing anything to your room, and you can change your own sheets. And I just shut the door, and I told her, don't go in there. They will do their room today. That's privilege. And I just said no. So anytime I started noticing that, whether it was those kind of comments or everybody has this and I want it, I'm just like, well, we're not everybody, number one. We can't afford it, number two. And you're not going to get it, And so I think we all have a tendency to give our children too much. And then they just start expecting it. Every time Greg's parents used to come visit when the kids were little, Mrs. Stubbs would bring gifts, which was so sweet of her. But I started noticing that the kids were, before they even hugged her, before they even said hello, where's our gifts? Where's our gifts? And I told her, I said, I really appreciate you bringing them gifts, but let's just take a break. The next few times, don't bring them anything, because I want them to be excited to see you. And she was like, are you sure? And I said, absolutely. And I told my kids, I said, you lost the privilege of your gifts because that's what you were focusing on, and that's just wrong. That's just wrong. I will say one time, Kelsey got this doll for Christmas, and on the commercials, she did these somersaults. And when Santa, you remember this, Greg? When Santa brought the gift, she only did one somersault. They had her head full of sand. It was a really weird doll. And she did it, and then she didn't keep doing it. And Kelsey saw it, and she just looked at it, and she's like, it's broken, it's not right. And Greg said, well, it's mine now. And he took it, and he put it up in the top of the closet. And he goes, she's ungrateful. And I just said, well, in her defense, the commercial, the baby does multiple somersaults. We just were suckers for the commercial. I should have tested that little silly doll out in the first place. But anyways, that's what entitled. That's how I think you deal with entitlement. When you are disciplining your kid and you say you're going to do it, how do you actually do it if they don't obey you in a loving authority? Okay, wait. When you're disciplining your kid and you say you're going to do it, how do you actually do it if they don't obey you in a loving, authoritarian way? Okay, I think what this question is asking is, how do you follow through if they don't obey you in a loving... Okay, I'll just answer it. I don't think necessarily your child has to obey you in a loving way. How many times have I done something like the work in China because I knew I had to, and I didn't start off in a loving way, right? And I just think that the point is you're obeying. And obedient discipline, you're teaching your child to obey. You're teaching your child there's an authority in place. I am your authority, not because I, necessarily want to be, but God has given me that, right? That's my job. It says, children, obey your parents. And it's Exodus, it's in Colossians, what's the other one? Ephesians. It's throughout the Bible. So you teach it, and I used to tell my children, I don't answer to you, I answer to God, period. And He's going to hold me accountable for, did I teach you to obey? Because the principle here is they learn to obey us, and then later on, they learn to obey God. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. So, obedience. My child has an attitude of entitlement. What is a good way to deal with that, or what causes it? Okay, just answer that. Thoughts on spanking and discipline? Well, we're just going for it. For a 3 to 4 year old boy, this is tricky because, where our world stands on all this. But did I spank? Yes, I did. Did I spank all the time? No, I did not. I would tell my children, you're going to get a spanking because, and I would tell them why. And I usually, then they were little. They were 5 and under. After that, we didn't really spank. But 3 times, 3 swats on the thigh, and then I would hug them, and I would say, I love you, but you cannot hit your brother, your sister, whatever. You cannot throw the toy. You cannot run across the street. You cannot whatever it was. And I would just say, I love you, and I'm not mad at you anymore. I mean, I wasn't ever mad at you. I'm not mad at you, but this is why you got in trouble, or you lied, or whatever. And then they would say, okay, They didn't love it, but that's how I did it. And I always felt like they knew the reason why they were getting punished, and I think we always ended with a hug, and then that was it. I mean, I didn't bring it up again. We didn't talk about it a ton and all that. But that's totally up to y'all. I'm not telling you have to do that. You asked me the question, so I'm answering it. My kids are 37 and 41. I'm full of wonderful advice, but it seems more like a time of listening to them than talking to them. How can I get them to talk more about the superficial things, more than superficial things? I would pray about that. My children are older too, and I do a lot of listening as well. And I think that's good. I think that's good that they're coming to us and they want to talk to us. I will sometimes say, are you asking my advice, or are you just wanting me to listen? And then a lot of the times they'll say, listen, and I'm like, okay. And then they'll usually say, do you have something you want to say? I'm like, I could. I could speak into this, but if you just want me to listen, then I'll do that too. What do you think are the most important things in encouraging your children to follow Jesus and not be swayed by the world? Well, this is getting harder and harder, right? I think some of the most important things is our walk with the Lord. Do they see you walking with the Lord? Can they see the fruits of the Spirit in your life? That's a big deal. Because if they can't, I'll tell you one thing, children can sniff out a hypocrite like nobody's business. So if you're not practicing what you're preaching, they're going to let you know, well, that doesn't work for you. And it hurts, whenever that comes back. I think prayer is a huge thing that we are not on our knees, and we need to be. And I think that their walk with the Lord, stay involved in church. I know Greg got involved with the youth ministry when our kids were growing up. He went on a lot of mission trips with our kids. I went to China. And then just different things, like I wrote that teen devotional for girls, especially because I think they're having a hard time. They get stuck in that social media world and all that, and they lose sight of reality. So that I wrote for the girls specifically because, and it has reflection questions. So if you have a daughter, you could do it with her if she, wanted to. And I tried to pose it to where it was relevant to their lives. And I had a bunch of teenage girls read through it to give me feedback, and because I wanted it to be relevant, not some old lady doing it. Ways to handle multi-generations in the same household. A lot of flexibility, a lot of grace, and a lot of love. Multi-generations in the same household can be challenging, but wow, it can also be rewarding, So my grandmother lived to 100 years old, and she lived with my parents the last few years of her life, and I loved having conversations with her. But there were challenges there too, not with me and her, but I know with my mom and her that could be challenging. But it was a blessing when I look back on it, really was. Any other questions, or do we need to go? Oh, listen, I'm here all night. Yeah. Lindsay has a microphone if anybody has a question. One's up here. Do you have one? Okay.
Thanks. I kind of actually have 2 questions, maybe 4.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'll try to keep it short. I wanted to know, when God called you into a different mission, or further on into your missionary work, what pushed you from one mission to the other? Like when He called you, and I understand He called you, but I don't see the pieces.
Do you mean when I left the church and started Birds on a Wire?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know if it was China. I was like, that wasn't a mission necessarily.
Oh.
I just think Greg was involved in a midair collision in 1996. Oh. And he was doing these dog fights, and his wingman ran into him, and blah, blah, blah. 700 Club was down the road from us, and they asked him to come out to the show to be on it, because he was a Christian, he was had strong belief, and he was a fighter pilot. And he landed the jet. He brought the jet home, and he landed it. So he was on Good Morning America, Newsweek, and all this kind of stuff. I tell y'all, he's pretty amazing. So anyways, I was there. I had 3 kids at the time, 5, 3, and 1. And so I went, and I was coming into the green room to get him, and we were going to go to lunch. And this prophet lady was there. And she said, God's given me a vision for your life. And I was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. And I said, okay, are you talking to me? And she said, yes. And she said, do you want to hear it? And I said, sure. And she said, you're going to minister to thousands and thousands and thousands of women. And I was like, you are really sweet. You have the wrong person. Oh. But thank you so much. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I volunteer once a month at my church in the church nursery, and that's about it. So thank you for that. And Greg said later, what was she saying? And I told him, and I said, she was crazy. She was wrong. 20 years later, I totally forgot about it. 100%, I totally forgot about it. I started working in the church in Atlanta, doing the thing, and God just started opening my eyes to the moms around me, because I really believed in Virginia I was the only mom that thought it was hard, because everybody else makes it look so easy, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I was on staff, I just kept seeing these young moms really struggling, and I had compassion for them. I saw them. And then I took one small step of obedience of doing the small group. And then I took another step of obedience in picking books that I thought would be good. And then another small and another small and another small step. And then one day God just said, I want you to start a ministry. And somebody at the church said, I think you need to start a ministry. And I said, no, I don't. I don't want to do that. And anyways, it was just one small step at a time, but it was one obedient thing at a time. Right. So really, it didn't happen in one. And I really never wanted to have a ministry. Yeah. At the end of the day, I just feel like I'm a stay-at-home mom that really has a heart for all the moms out there, you know? So.
You're better.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, cool. That answered my question. My other question is, how do you unconditionally love your teenage child when they're making the stupidest decisions in their lives?
Yeah.
And you just want to throttle them, but love them from a distance at the same time.
Yeah. I think we have to just pray for them and ask God to give you all of his unconditional love that he has for her, to give it to you and to teach you ways that she will see your love.
Oh, that's good.
And that might be different from what you think it might be.
That's okay.
Yeah. And I also would pray against the bad decisions that she's making. I would pray against that.
Yeah.
Because something is deceiving her. You know what I mean? Something is deceiving her, and I would pray against that. Yeah. And you have the power and authority to do that.
Amen.
Yep.
All right. Well, my other question.
Oh, you really do have three? Okay.
You really do.
Okay, go ahead.
But you're in luck. Well, you're blessed right now because I'm pregnant and I forgot. So.
Oh.
I'm going to pass the microphone off. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it. Well, thank y'all for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just really loved being here with you guys tonight, so thank you. And they're dismissed, right? Yeah. Y'all drive safe.